Welcome to our video. This video will be a mid-year book tag, so we're kind of just gonna talk about what I've read so far this year. So if I've kept good track, which I'm not sure that I have, but if I did, I have read 49 books so far this year, and that is 18 physical books, 10 ebooks, 20 audiobooks, and 1 manga. I actually read my first manga last night, yay! And right here next to me is the physical books I've read this year. I keep them on this bookcase, so it's a little visual representation of at least the physical books I've read. But yeah, let's just get into the questions then. So the first question is the best book you've read in 2024. Since I've only had 3 5-star reads in 2024, I think those would be my best books I've read this year. So the first 5-star read I had this year was The Martian, which is sci-fi, which is like, why was that a favorite of mine? Don't know. But I actually really love this book. It's about this astronaut who gets stuck on Mars by himself and he's trying to stay alive. And he is just so witty, and I just loved this book for some reason. The next 5-star book I had of the year was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This was my first Abby Jimenez book, actually, and it was just like perfect. It had so much like emotion and like, I don't know, like the romance was good, like their relationship outside of like romance, like how they were there for each other when they were like struggling in their lives was just so good. But this book is about these two people who have a curse where when they date someone and they break up, that person goes on to date their soulmate. And so they decide to date to break up and then find their soulmates. But yeah, this was just such a good book. I really love this book. And my other 5-star read of this year was Things You Save in a Fire. I can never remember the name of that book for some reason. Yeah, Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Sinner. This is my second Catherine Sinner book, and I just really love her writing. And I think she's just a phenomenal romance writer, and how she's able to write stories that like have romance and you're like you're like into the romance, but you're also into the characters and what's going on outside of the romance. And she's really good at doing that. So this book was about this woman who is a firefighter, and she joins like a new crew in a different city, and they're like, they don't think women should be firefighters, and so it's her like adjusting to being in a whole different environment. She's also taking care of her sick mother, and I think I cried during this book. I also cried during Just for the Summer, by the way. Not like a lot, but like a little. I cried. So I think those are like the best books I've read of 2024 so far. The best sequel you've read so far this year. What other books have I read this year? I think I'm gonna answer 2 for this question because I'm indecisive. So I'm gonna answer 2. And that would be the books 3 and 4 in the Bridgerton series, which is An Offer from a Gentleman, Benedict's story, and Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin's story. From my memory of the first 2, which I read a couple years ago, I just really liked these more than those, and I just thoroughly enjoyed reading them, so I would say these are really good sequels in my opinion. The Bridgerton series is set in the Regency era, and it's about this family of 8 children, and each book follows a different one as they're like courting people and trying to get married. Sounds boring, but if you watch the show, you know it's not boring. So yeah, I really enjoyed reading both of these, and I will hopefully read more this year. I guess when I said I have 2 answers, I meant 2 series, because my next one is also 2 books in a series, which is Daisy Hates and Magnolia Park's The Great Undoing. These are both in the Magnolia Parks world. So this is the second, this is the third book. And basically it's about these young socialites in London and like the drama in their life. And it's very toxic, but I don't know. I'm just so wrapped up in the characters now. So Magnolia Parks follows Magnolia and BJ, and Daisy Hates follows her and her brother Julian and her love interest Christian. And I think I like this set of books better than the Magnolia Parks, but this one made me change my mind a little bit that I really liked this one. So I just guess I like the series in general, and I definitely liked both of these more than the first Magnolia Parks book. Oh no, I just bent my book. That's okay, this one's used anyway. So the next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. And I think I have a couple for this, but like the biggest one is Rachel Price. No. Holly Jackson's new book, The Reappearance of Rachel Price. I really love Holly Jackson because she wrote the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, and that's one of my favorite trilogies. I've read that series 3 or 4 times. I really like it. And so her new book came out this year, and it's about basically this woman named Rachel Price disappeared when her daughter was like a baby, and her daughter was the only one to witness it. And then the daughter is doing a documentary when she's like a teenager, and then her mom just reappears. And so I guess the story is about what happened. I don't really know because I haven't read it yet, but I really want to read it because I love Holly Jackson's writing. And Another one that I haven't read yet that I want to is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. Like I said, I really like her writing, and so I want to continue reading her books. And The Rom-Commers is about, if I remember correctly, it's about this woman who is a writer, and she gets hired to help someone. Yeah, so she gets a chance to rewrite a script for a writer, and so she has to work with him to rewrite his script. And I guess it's a love story. And another book, which is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. So Ali Hazelwood writes like STEM romances, so this is just another STEM romance. Couldn't tell you what it's about, doesn't matter. It's a STEM romance. I have heard that this one is a bit more smutty than her other books. And yeah, another book I'm looking forward to is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. It is a sequel to Powerless, and it comes out like next week. Next week! I'm so excited. I can't wait to read it the day I get that book. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I just answered that one. It is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I think that's my only answer. Off the top of my head, that's the only one I can think of. So that's what I'm going with. Next question. Biggest surprise. So I am gonna reuse one. I am gonna reuse The Martian, because I am just not really into sci-fi or fantasy. It's something I was into when I read like young adult books when I was like in middle school, but then as an adult, I've been reaching more for thrillers and romance, and I just haven't really been interested. But I read this book in a video where my boyfriend picked my reads because he really liked this book and I owned a copy of it. I told him he could pick whatever was on my shelves. And so he told me to read it. And like I said, I actually really liked it. It was my first 5-star read of the year. So yeah, this was a big surprise. And I do think I'm going to read more of this author's work because I liked this one so much. I'm gonna have 3 for this answer, but another one was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is her memoir, and basically she, if you don't know, she was a Nickelodeon star when she was a child, and her mom was abusing her whole life. Her mom forced her into acting, her mom was abusing her, and just like a lot of stuff happened in her life, and she wrote a book about it. And this surprised me how much I liked it because I typically don't reach for nonfiction. In my head, I'm like, it's going to be boring. That's not true. That is so not true. There's so much nonfiction that is so interesting to read. And whenever I do read nonfiction that I choose, I actually do like it. I just never reach for it. But I also read this in the video that my boyfriend picked my reads, and he wanted me to go out of my comfort zone and read more nonfiction. And I of course, I wanted to read this book, like I owned it. And yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. It does cover some triggering topics, so do check the trigger warnings if you are going to read this book. But I found it very enjoyable, and it was very eye-opening too. And I would say another book that surprised me this year was Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. And I know this is such a popular series, but I was just worried I wasn't going to like it because, like I said, I'm not super into fantasy. And I also am not really a fan of A Court of Thorn and Roses by this author. I have only read the first book, and I just try to get into the second one and I haven't been able to, and I do want to try again, but for right now it's just not a series that I'm interested in reading. But people rave about this one so much that I wanted to try it, and I actually really love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, and yes, I know I started with the prequel. Destiny Sidwell and Sarah Crowley say to start with the prequel, so that's where I started. But this is a series about an assassin, and I don't really know what to say other than that because I've only read the prequel. But I really do love the main character of this book, and I can't wait to see where she goes and like what she accomplishes because I really like the person she is. So the next question is favorite author, debut, or new to you? And I honestly haven't read very many new authors this year. I've been rereading a lot or just reading books by authors or in the same series. I think the only one I can say for this is Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. Like I said, I really loved his writing and I do want to read more of his books, so I guess I would say this is whatever the question was. Favorite author, debut, or new to you? Yeah, he's new to me, so yeah, that was the answer to that one. The next question is newest fictional crush. I wouldn't say I have any fictional crushes. There's very few like men in books where I'm like obsessed with, and I guess that's because like I have a boyfriend and I love him. But I will say that Justin in Just for the Summer was like the ultimate book boyfriend. He was quite honestly perfect. He was good to her. He showed up, you know, if he wanted to, he would. He was golden retriever. He was good with his family. He's good with kids. He's good with pets. Like, he didn't do a single thing wrong in this book. So I would say he is like the ultimate book boyfriend, and I guess that would be my answer to this question. Actually, I have another answer. I did reread Divine Rivals and then read the sequel for the first time this year, Ruthless Vows, and this one, not as good as this one, by the way. This one is like so good. The reason I think it's so good is because I really love the love story in this book, because I figured out during this, like my second read of the book, that the main character in this book, Roman Kit, reminds me of Peeta Mellark. And I love The Hunger Games. Like, The Hunger Games is one of my favorite series of all time. Please read that book as an adult if you have not read it since you were a child. And Roman Kit gives Peeta Mellark vibes, and I realized that, and I was like, that's why I love this book so much, because Roman Kit is Peeta Mellark. And so I would also put Roman Kit up there in this category, because rereading this book, I realized just how much I love him. The next question is book that made you cry. And I haven't full out cried to a book this year, but there's been very many books where I have like teared up and shed a couple tears. I just haven't read any like super sad books where I'm like crying so much I can't read. But I will say that looking at my books, I definitely cried a little bit reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is about a girl who makes a deal with like an entity, and she is immortal, and she never ages, never dies, but no one remembers her. And so she's lived like 300 years like that. And so reading about her life leading up to where she is in like current day is like so sad, like everything she went through and how she's had to live like alone for so long. I definitely shed some tears reading this book, especially the ending. I also, just for the summer, I definitely teared up some reading this book as well. Not like sad tears. I think they were all like sentimental tears. So like not like happy tears, but like, aw, you know? And then I'm looking through the like ebooks and audiobooks I read. Okay, I can't remember any specifically, but I read a lot of YA coming of age books, and they're all like mid. Like I don't actually like any of them that much. Like if I were, like I don't read audiobooks because I feel like I don't really like get everything there is to get in them. But if I were to read audiobooks, most of the YA coming of age books I read would just be in the 3-star range. But I do tear up at some point reading these YA books. And they're like near the ending, there's always like some kind of like revelation or like whatever where I'm like, oh. So like a lot of those I've teared up, but I couldn't tell you like a specific one. Oh, I just remembered another one. I reread the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare because she's one of my favorite authors. And the ending of the series, so the last book, Clockwork Princess, the ending of the book and the epilogue, that makes me cry. Like that, like I was listening to it, but I was like crying so much I could barely see my screen at work because that ending always gets me because of how much I love those characters. So that book definitely made me cry, that last one. Book that made you happy. I don't really have an answer for this book. Like books make me happy because like I enjoy reading them, but I haven't really had a book that like I would say made me feel happy. Is that weird? The most beautiful book you've bought this year or received. I haven't bought any special editions this year, so I don't know if I have an answer for this. It would just be like a regular book cover. I would say this is one of the prettiest books that I've got this year, just because it's like illustrated very pretty and it's bright and colorful. But yeah, I don't know, that's kind of it. Oh, I did get this book at the beginning of this year because it's like dark academia and it gives fall vibes, so I would say that's kind of pretty. Just because those are the vibes I like. That's all I got. What books do you need to read by the end of this year? So right next to me is my TBR card for the year, so I'm going to look at this and see if there's any that I really want to read. I think one of the ones really calling out to me from my cart is Dune, because I started reading this book when like the first movie came out, or like a few months after the first movie came out. And it's not that I didn't like it, it's just sci-fi, so I couldn't really get into it. And so I put it down and haven't tried since then. And watching the second movie, which is like the second half of this book, just like reiterated how much I think I would like the books. So I need to read this book. I really do need to read this book this year. And I have a second copy now because my friend group talked about like buddy reading the book. And so me and my boyfriend both bought like a set of the first 3 books in like mass market paperback. So now I have 2 of the first copy. Still haven't read it. And honestly, there's no books I really feel the need to read this year, except for some of the new releases I talked about. Like, I need to read those. And yeah, I mean, there's books I would like to read this year, but like nothing that's like really standing out to me, like, read this. You know, I'm a mood reader. I'm a mood reader, guys. I just kind of read what I feel like in the moment. There's some books I want to read like right now, but who's to say if I'll have the same answer tomorrow? How many 5-star reads this year? Like I said, 3. I've had 3 this year. I am very picky when it comes to 5-star reads. What books do you want to reread this year? All I do is reread books. I swear to God, I love rereading books. Most of the audiobooks I've read this year have been rereads. Let's do a little count. It's gonna sound very pathetic. So I read 20 audiobooks this year. 9 out of 20 audiobooks I've read this year have been rereads. But anyway, yeah, I like rereading books. Off the top of my head, I do know I want to reread The Hunger Games this year, the series, because I have not reread them this year, and normally I reread them like 3 times every year. I have a problem. And the reason is because I usually listen to them 3 times in a year. But I want my next read through to be physically so I can continue annotating, because I annotated all 3 books and the prequel once, and I want to go through and annotate them again before I listen. I just haven't had a chance to sit down and annotate them, which is why I haven't read them yet. So I do want to reread all of those this year, and I will probably reread Iron Flame, which is the second Fourth Wing book, near the end of this year, because the next book comes out the beginning of next year, so I want to be ready for that. Honestly, that's probably it for rereads. I know I'm gonna reread more than that, but off the top of my head, there's the only ones that's like coming to mind. A book you enjoyed with mixed reviews. Huh, that's a good question. Honestly, I would say a good answer to this is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, because this had oddly some like bad reviews, and I'm not really sure how you can say someone's life story is not a good book, because it's like, who are you to judge? But yeah, this one definitely has some mixed reviews. And like, I understand like content wise, whatever, but like it's very upfront that there's stuff in this book that is triggering. So it's not like you go into it blind, not knowing what you're getting into. It's like, look at the title. She was literally so abused that she wrote her life story book and named it I'm Glad My Mom Died. Okay, clearly she had a rough childhood. You go into the book knowing it's not gonna be a happy story, so I don't want to see any reviews talking about the content because it's upfront. Okay, there's not trigger warnings in the front of the book, but I have only ever heard it talked about with people saying there's trigger warnings, so I don't know. I honestly just don't really have an answer for this other than that one. I feel like, oh my God, there's so much cat hair everywhere in my house. I don't know. I think the only other possible answer to this one is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. She is known for her STEM romance, but this is a paranormal romance. So I feel like a lot of people had mixed opinions on this book because it's such a different genre. And I discovered while reading this book that it's also not the genre for me, but I tried to like keep that out of, like, I tried not to give it a bad rating just because it's not like a genre I like. Like, yeah, I could do without the sex scenes in this book because it's about a vampire and a werewolf, and they're look up Notting if you want to know what I'm talking about. Anyway, but I tried to be like, okay, well, that is not for me. But what about the story? What about the writing outside of like the things I didn't like, which is a personal preference. Like, I just I know now that I don't like paranormal romance, and it's not, I don't think it's really fair to be like, I don't like paranormal romance, this is a 1-star book, because like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, because ratings are like subjective. You can say what you want. I don't know. Anyway, mixed reviews for this book because it was her first dip into paranormal romance. But I was looking at it like she's a good storyteller. She's good at writing. I like the way she describes characters and brings them to life and gives them like personality traits. And I don't know, I really like her writing. So even though I didn't like the paranormal romance in this book, I still gave it a 4 stars because I like her writing. And I'm just talking in circles, but I think this is an answer to that question. Wow, I'm yapping today. Okay, so the last question is 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. And I don't really like going into books expecting it to be a certain way, because I feel like I'm just let down when I do that. And any book I've gone into it expecting it to be very, very good, I have been let down. And so I'm trying to not have expectations like that anymore, because I don't know if it's the book or if it's me. I don't know if I'm hyping it up so much in my mind that once I finally get to it, it's just really not good, or if it was gonna not be good to begin with. So I try really hard not to hype stuff up. And I know I've talked about Reckless a lot in this video, but it's not a 5-star prediction because I gave the first one 4.5. I'm expecting to really like it, but I'm not expecting it to be like perfect. So I don't know. The answer is I don't have any 5-star predictions. So yeah, no 5-star predictions because I just don't do that. And yeah, that was all the questions. I don't think I said this already, but I was basing this video off of Sarah Caroli's version of this video. I was using the questions she had, in her video. I'm not sure where she got those questions from, so, you know, so credit where credit goes. But yeah, that's it. I can't believe we're in the middle of the year already. That's literally insane. The book is halfway over, guys. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Maybe I'll watch some more of my videos, and yeah, bye. Ugh, so much cat here. I know it's on me for not cleaning it off before I sat down, but like, look at all this cat hair. I haven't cleaned this chair in a while. Can you tell, guys? Can you tell? Can you tell whose favorite chair this is? Because there's one cat that lays in it every day. Can you guess?